Le 16 juillet 2026, la cérémonie de lancement des manifestations commémoratives du centenaire de la naissance de Gu Fangzhou s'est tenue au siège de l'UNESCO à Paris sur le thème « Une arche pour un siècle, l'harmonie au service de la vie ». Organisée par l'Association chinoise pour la science et la technologie, en partenariat avec plusieurs institutions françaises et internationales, l'événement a réuni chercheurs, universitaires, professionnels de santé, représentants d'organisations internationales et acteurs de l'innovation scientifique et technologique. Lors de la session d'échange, Chu Yiwei, vice-présidente de la Société chinoise d'immunologie et présidente de la Société d'immunologie de Shanghai, a donné une conférence intitulée « L'héritage du professeur Gu Fangzhou et le rayonnement international de la Société chinoise d'immunologie ».
The Professor Gu Fangzhou was born on 1926 in Shanghai, the big city. And then graduated from the Peking University for the medical degrees, and then he went to the Soviet Union for further biology studies in 1955. And then he was engaged or decided to the polio virus from 1957. Professor Gu Fangzhou conducted a trial and the production of the points of the vaccines. So he developed China's first inactive polio vaccines, and then created the trivalent oral polio vaccines. Then we call it the candy pill. And then in 1984 to 1993, he was the president of Peking Union Medical College. And also in 1988, he was the president of Chinese Society, the first president of our Chinese Society for Immunology. And then in 1929, and he passed away in Beijing at the age of 92. The great contribution of Professor Gu Fangzhou is inventing the candy pill, which has the 4 phases. The first phase is the strategic decisiveness. Because in 1955, the polio outbreak in lots of provinces, especially in the east of province like Jiangsu. So Professor Gu Fangzhou faced the problems. He went to the Soviet Union to learn the polio vaccines, and faced to the injection like the Salk injection IPV or the Sabin auto drops. He visionarily chose the OPV path for the China. So in the phase 2, he established a makeshift research station in Kunming, as just mentioned. And then, despite the poor conditions, he successfully isolated strains and cultivated China's first live attenuated vaccines. So in the third phases, as mentioned, I think by lots of guests, so for the safety, Professor Gu first drank the experimental vaccine fluid to prove for the adults is the safety. And also, he secretly gave the vaccine to his infant son to test the pediatric efficacy. Result followed by his, encouraged by his spirit, so the team members all followed the suit, and the trials were flawlessly successful. So in the 4 stages, how to manufacture the candy pills in the last century, in the 1960s. So the problem they faced is that the original wrinkled vaccine was bitter. They also required freezing and was hard to distribute. So to resolve these problems, Professor Gu Fangzhou invented a skills that wrapped the vaccine in a sweet, sugar-coated pill. So this impact is that the vaccine can stable at room temperature and be loved by the children because it's sweet and enable massive nationwide immunizations. So finally, on the vaccines, to save many people, especially the kids, so the annual polio cases decreased from tens of thousands from 1950s to near zero to 1990s. So the milestone in October in 2000, at the age of 74, Professor Gu Fangzhou signed the historic WHO document certifying that China officially polio-free. So that's a great milestone. So if we look at the vaccination, you can see the vaccination is the great successful in the public health. In the last century, for the the public health events is, you can see immunization listed first that can save many people's lives. And even in this century, the expanding immunization coverage is also listed at the top two for the public health. And then you see the vaccination is a lot of way for the publications for the list. But if you look at the China, you can see after the establishment of New China, we call People's Republic of China, the vaccination is a process that strengthens the nation along with its growth. For example, in the last century, like 1950s, only few people can have the vaccination in the particular area and in the particular persons. So in the 1960s to 60s, you can see the several vaccination, and till this century, many people can have the vaccination injection and covering all the diseases, especially infection diseases. So here has listed the most important is the mass vaccination eradicated smallpox in China by the early 1960s. And also in November 2000, China declared officially polio-free, and also the vaccination averted 300 million cases and 4 million deaths for measles, for polio, tuberculosis, and tetanus. Especially because China has a lot of people suffer from the hepatitis. So by 2040, under 5 hepatitis carrier rate, under 5-year-old, dropped dramatically to 0.032%. So can preventing 30 million chronic infections. So vaccination not only in the global, but also in China, is worldwide useful for save the people lives and prevention diseases. So the categories of vaccine in China have two. One is the we call it National Immunization Program vaccines. This is free of charge and can cover all the vaccine diseases. And the two is the non-NIP vaccines, such as the influenza, pneumonia, and also the EV71. We now have the HPV vaccines. So with the help and with the support of the Association of Chinese Science and Technology, Chinese Society for Immunology wrote a book named with the vaccine, vaccines protect life, and to tell the person how to get vaccination, how to avoid the side of the vaccination. But I think the goal is to continually meet the people's growing aspiration for a better life.